Morning fog hung over a leveled orchard. 200 acres of splintered stumps, a yellow bulldozer silent in the carnage. John Reeves drove straight from his daughter's wedding back to his land. He parked and stared at the destruction.
This was his grandfather's legacy. Now, a graveyard of trees.
He walked through the ruin, his boots crunching broken branches. Then his foot struck metal.
Federal Wildlife Refuge. A half-buried sign, and yet the words still screamed.
He pulled the sign from the mud. It felt heavy with the weight of federal law.
They bulldozed a wildlife refuge. They didn't just kill trees, they committed a federal crime.
John's hands were steady. His mind was already calculating. Someone had just made a catastrophic mistake.
You should have left the trees alone. Grandfather, you left me more than land. You left me a weapon.
But the sign was only a key. The real story began decades earlier with a handshake in a sunlit kitchen. William Reeves handed his grandson the deed to 200 acres. His voice was a gravel road.
He didn't say I love you. He said the bees need you.
The orchard in spring was a cathedral of white petals. Honeybees drowned the air with hum. After the funeral, John sat under a canopy of branches and opened the deed for the first time. Tucked inside was a yellowed letter. John, this land is a federal refuge. The bees depend on it. So will you.
At the time, I thought it was just poetry, an old man's dream.
He remembered walking these rows as a boy, his grandfather pointing at every bee as if it were a tiny nation.
He wasn't just growing apples. He was building a fortress of laws around this place.
But the world had changed. A new subdivision bordered the orchard now, and a woman named Linda Whitfield had ideas about green space. Linda Whitfield summoned John to an HOA meeting. She pointed at him from the podium, her pink blazer blazing.
Your orchard is an eyesore. Cut it down and put in proper landscaping, or face HOA fines.
The orchard is my land. It's not subject to your rules.
This is a gated community. We have standards. If you refuse, we'll take legal action.
John's half-smile widened. He knew her threats were empty. The orchard had protections she couldn't imagine.
Go ahead. Try. The more you push, the harder you'll crash.
The room went quiet. Linda's face twisted. She had never been defied like this in front of her neighbors.
He's not just refusing. He's smug. I'll make sure he regrets this.
Later, alone in her office, Linda drafted a mass email to the HOA board. Subject: urgent, nuisance orchard must be removed.
You want to play hardball, farmer? I'll bring bulldozers myself if I have to.
Linda's rage curdled into purpose. She spent the next morning combing through county property records on her tablet.
There must be a loophole. A lien, a zoning violation, something to crush that arrogant farmer.
She froze on a scanned document from 1998. Federal Pollinator Refuge, designation active. Term, 20-year renewable.
Renewable? It expired 5 years ago. This is worthless paper. The government forgot about it. Perfect. It's just an abandoned technicality. I can bulldoze the whole thing and blame it on bureaucratic inertia.
She scrolled to a contact. Dave Cutler, a contractor who never asked questions as long as the check cleared.
Dave, honey, I have a rush job. An orchard next to the subdivision needs clearing. The paperwork's covered. Tomorrow night, the owner is out of town for a wedding. Double your usual rate.
She hung up and stared at the document again. In her mind, the orchard was already sawdust.
By the time John Reeves gets back from that wedding, his precious trees will be mulch, and legally he won't be able to do a thing.
In a dusty office, Dave Cutler listened as Linda's voice spilled from the speakerphone, urgent and honeyed.
200 acres leveled overnight? That takes heavy machinery, and a crew that doesn't ask questions.
I have a bulldozer and a dozen men. The county variance clears us. Triple rate, Dave. Don't overthink.
Triple Pay talked, but something in her voice felt like picking up a lit stick of dynamite.
He walked out to the yard where his crew was loading the flatbed in twilight, chainsaws and fuel cans stacked.
We roll at midnight. No headlights until we hit the property line. Cut every trunk and don't stop.
His phone buzzed with a map attachment. Linda's text read, "Owners at the wedding. The orchard is yours for the taking."
Dave stared at the satellite image, then threw his hard hat onto the passenger seat. A man couldn't afford principles.
200 miles away, John Reeves straightened his tie and walked his daughter down a petal-strewn aisle.
For that 1 hour, he forgot orchards and lawsuits. Only Emma's smile as she took her vows existed.
Under string lights, John took Emma's hand for the father-daughter dance. The band played something old and slow.
Thank you, Dad, for everything. I know you'd rather be out in the orchard.
Today, the orchard can wait. You're exactly where you're supposed to be.
They swayed, and for a moment, John felt the weight of decades lift from his shoulders.
He's not here, but I know Grandpa is watching, and he's just as proud as I am.
After the dance, John stepped outside the tent to catch his breath, the night air cool and still.
A strange unease flickered, an image of trees swaying under a different light, but it passed.
He went back inside, found Emma, and spun her once more, laughing.
To William Reeves, who taught me that land isn't just dirt, it's a promise.
To Grandpa. She clinked his glass, then hugged him tight.
Midnight. Linda's white Range Rover pulled up to the orchard's edge, headlights slicing through the dark.
Start with the big ones. I want the whole neighborhood to hear the crash.
The bulldozer engine roared. The first apple tree, a century old, splintered like a bone.
Say goodbye to the eyesore, Janice. She angled her phone, live streaming the carnage to the HOA group chat.
The chat exploded with fire emojis. Finally, someone typed. "Green space at last," cheered another. Dave's bulldozer lurched over a mound, and a metallic screech cut through the noise. He killed the engine.
Linda, there's a sign. Federal Wildlife Refuge. This isn't some old zoning code.
It expired. I checked. Now get back in the cab or I'll find someone who will.
He glanced at the sign, then at the triple pay deposit in his bank app. The moment calcified into guilt.
The engine roared back to life. Linda laughed, her phone still broadcasting as row after row of trees vanished. The bulldozer didn't stop until the last apple tree cracked and fell under a blood-red dawn. Dave Cutler killed the engine. His ears rang in the sudden silence. He stepped out into a wasteland of splinters.
The silence was worse than the noise. It smelled like sap and guilt.
His crew loaded the flatbed without speaking. Chainsaws clanked into the truck bed, each sound an accusation. His phone buzzed. Linda's payment posted, 6 figures, already in his account. He stared until the screen dimmed. 200 miles away, John's old pickup hummed down the interstate, the wedding suit replaced by his worn flannel.
He tapped the wedding photo taped to the dashboard. Emma's smile was still bright, undimmed by the long drive. That smile felt like armor against a worry he couldn't name, a shadow that clung to the edge of his joy.
The highway exit for County Road 4 approached. The last stretch before his land appeared on the horizon.
Almost home, Grandpa. I'll check on the east fence line first. Maybe the bees have started a new hive.
John pulled the sign from the mud and carried it past the splintered hives, past the silence, up to the farmhouse door.
Grandpa's bees trusted this place. Their hives are just kindling now.
He set the sign on the kitchen table and opened his laptop. The screen's glow carved deep lines into his face.
Let's see what Linda didn't bother to check.
He pulled up the federal registry. The refuge wasn't just designated, it was active, renewed perpetually, and tied to the land forever. Designation CR 1998-0337, Reeves Orchard Pollinator Refuge. Trustee, John Reeves. Status, active. Last reviewed, 2022.
Not just a refuge. I'm the trustee. Grandpa, You beautiful old schemer.
He scrolled through the covenant terms. Any habitat destruction required immediate federal notification. Penalties were criminal.
No phone call. No warning. Just a paper trail she can't delete.
He drafted the email with the evidence attached, then closed the laptop. Dawn was still breaking. He'd wait for the right moment. Inside the farmhouse, John unlocked a cedar trunk his grandfather had built. The scent of cedar and old paper filled the room. He unfolded the 1998 covenant. Paragraph 12 was underlined. Trustee shall receive all fines for destruction held in trust for restoration.
Linda didn't just bring federal charges on herself. She made the check out to me personally. You built a legal fortress, Grandpa, and gave me the keys to this place.
He pulled his grandfather's field journal from the trunk, pages thick with bee drawings and climate notes, the refuge application tucked inside. A passage from the journal read, "Today the bees showed me the goldenrod field. I applied for federal protection. One day, John, this will matter."
He knew decades ago. He laid tripwires I'm only now understanding.
John sat at the laptop, reopened the draft, and attached the covenant scan and the journal entry.
One click. That's all it takes. But not yet. I want the agents to see the stumps while they're fresh.
He closed the laptop a second time, the covenant and deed resting beside it, bathed in the rising sun. 3 hours after sunrise, John opened the laptop. He clicked send. The email vanished into federal servers.
That's it. No going back. Grandpa, this one's for you.
Within 2 hours, a black SUV crunched up the gravel drive. 2 agents stepped out, their olive uniforms crisp.
Mr. Reeves, I'm Agent Miller, U.S. Fish and Wildlife. We received your report. Show us the damage.
John led them into the orchard. Agent Collins knelt by a stump, measuring width and photographing the cut pattern.
These are federally protected pollinator habitats. The bee specimens alone will carry felony charges. Who did this, Mr. Reeves? We need names, contractors, and any documentation you have.
Linda Whitfield, HOA president. She streamed it herself. I'll forward you the live feed plus the recording.
Agent Collins pulled a GPS mapper from his vest and started logging each destroyed acre. The process was precise, methodical. By noon, the agents had filled 3 evidence bags and marked the property as an active federal crime scene. The agents traced the bulldozer back to Dave Cutler's yard. They found him wiping grease from his hands, a dead cigarette on the ground.
Mr. Cutler, you leveled a federal refuge. We have the live stream. Start talking.
They had everything. That pink blazer and her lies felt like handcuffs already.
Dave's hand trembled as he lit a cigarette, federal documents visible on the truck hood. The morning sun felt like a spotlight.
We know Linda Whitfield paid you. Cooperate now, and this goes easier for you.
She said the paperwork was covered. The refuge was expired. I didn't know it was active.
Agent Collins flipped through Dave's phone records, finding the payment data and Linda's texts. The evidence was airtight.
That's not what the federal registry says. You're looking at felony conspiracy charges.
Neighbors provided statements, the roar of chainsaws, the live stream, Linda cheering. The net tightened around her.
He stared at the documents. A man couldn't afford principles, but he couldn't afford a felony either.
The Range Rover screeched to a stop outside John's farmhouse. Linda Whitfield threw open the door, her heels hammering the gravel.
You called the feds over some trees? Do you have any idea what you've done to my reputation?
I called them about a federal crime. Sit down, Linda.
John reached into the cedar trunk and placed the covenant on the table. The wax seal caught the light.
Read paragraph 12. The fine doesn't just go to the government, it goes to me, the trustee.
Her pink lipstick cracked as her mouth fell open. Trustee, the word was a guillotine.
Linda grabbed the paper. Her hands shaking so hard the coffee mug beside it rattled.
You can't just take that money. That's my equity, my house, everything.
You shouldn't have touched the trees, Linda. Now get off my land before I add trespassing to the list.
She stumbled backward, the covenant crinkling in her fist, her world collapsing into a single, signed line. In a sterile federal office, Dave Cutler's pen hovered over the witness statement, his knuckles white.
Full immunity for your cooperation, Mr. Cutler. Sign it, and the felony charges vanish.
The pen scratched loudly. His signature laid bare every lie Linda Whitfield had fed him.
He just traded her empire for his own skin. The weight that lifted felt physical.
Outside, Linda sat in her Range Rover, jabbing at her phone. Her smear campaign needed to land before the feds did. She typed, "John Reeves is committing fraud. The orchard was always zoned for development. He's stealing from us." The HOA group chat flickered with confused emojis, then fell silent. No one echoed her cry this time. In a small office, Agent Collins compiled the final damage assessment. The numbers felt like a wrecking ball.
200 acres, 1,800 trees, 43 hives. Fine, $2.4 million, payable to the Reeves Pollinator Trust.
John received the sealed envelope. Linda's name was printed beneath the total. The service was scheduled for sunrise. Emma's car pulled up the gravel drive 2 days later. She stepped out and stared at the stumps, her honeymoon glow extinguished.
Dad, she did this while we were dancing? While you were giving me away?
She thought she was untouchable, but Grandpa made sure she was wrong.
He showed her the covenant and the fine amount. Emma's tears dried as fury replaced grief.
$2.4 million? You could build this place twice over. But it's not about the money.
No. It's about showing every Linda Whitfield that some lines can't be crossed.
Then do it, Dad. No mercy. Grandpa would have wanted you to protect this place, not just the trees.
They walked the perimeter until the last light. The empty ground felt charged, ready for a new beginning.
The fine will hit at sunrise. Linda will answer for every bee, every blossom.
They hugged one last time under the darkening sky. The envelope waited on the kitchen table, the seal unbroken. At sunrise, the black SUV pulled up to Linda Whitfield's Colonial. The agents stepped out, their footsteps echoing like a countdown.
Linda Whitfield, you are served for the destruction of a federally protected pollinator refuge. You must respond within 7 days.
Linda tore the envelope. The fine amount leaped off the paper, $2,400,000. The zeros seemed to multiply in the morning light.
This can't be legal. It's just trees. I'll sue every one of you. The trustee, John Reeves. She was paying him directly. The thought burned like acid.
An hour later, a federal crew arrived at the HOA common area. A bulldozer rolled toward the clubhouse, its blade raised.
This land is now held in mitigation for the Reeves Pollinator Trust. All HOA assets are frozen pending restoration costs.
The Ridgeline Estates sign cracked as it was lifted from its stone base. A new sign waited on the flatbed, Protected Wildlife Corridor. Linda stood on her porch, watching the plume of dust rise from the common area. The pink blazer hung limp, smeared with mascara.
She had built an empire on fear and HOA fines. Now it was all mulch and legal fees.
That evening, the HOA called an emergency session. Residents crowded the clubhouse, clutching federal notices and their canceled pool passes. Linda stepped to the podium, but the usual swagger was gone. The room felt like a tribunal.
I was only doing my job. That orchard was a blight on our property values.
A man stood, waving the federal order. "Blight? You've bankrupted us. The government seized our park." Phones lit up, showing the live stream of Linda laughing as trees fell. The video played on loop.
She opened her mouth to argue, but the words died. There was no loophole to wriggle through.
The board president gavelled for order. All in favor of dissolving this HOA, effective immediately. Say aye. A chorus of ayes. Linda stood frozen. The board voted unanimously to disband. The motion carried before she could even protest. She walked out alone, the meeting's door slamming behind her. No one followed.
She destroyed a man's inheritance, and now she had nothing left to preside over.
A week later, a certified letter arrived at the farmhouse. Inside was a check from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. $2.4 million drawn from the federal settlement, payable to the Reeves Pollinator Trust.
This is not revenge. It's resurrection money.
That afternoon, John called the local nursery. The order was simple: 1,800 apple saplings, pollinator-friendly. The local news caught wind. That evening, the headline flashed on his laptop: Orchard owner turns 2.4 melon fine into restoration miracle.
Every tree will be replanted. Every hive rebuilt. Grandpa's bees will have a home again.
Across town, a for sale sign was hammered into Linda's front lawn. A moving truck idled in the driveway. Her hot pink blazer hung alone on the coat rack. The house echoed with silence and packed boxes.
She climbed into the passenger seat and stared at the glove compartment. Just trees, she whispered. It was all she had left.
As the truck pulled away, John was already mapping the first row of new trees. The orchard would bloom again. Dawn found John at the nursery, his pickup bed already filling with bundled saplings, apple, pear, and wild plum.
1,800 trees, enough to feed 1 million bees.
Back at the orchard, wooden stakes already marked the new rows. Volunteers from town arrived with shovels and work gloves. Emma was first to take a sapling. She knelt, scooped the earth, and set the roots in place with a silence that was prayer.
This one's for William. He'll be the first to bloom.
He'd say, "You're doing it wrong," but he'd smile.
Row by row, the volunteers planted. By noon, 1,000 saplings stood like a young army. An old beekeeper donated 3 new hives, painted with Reeves' orchard in careful script.
In 3 years, this will be a cathedral again. But the bees will be back by spring.
Emma wrapped her arms around her father from behind. The first leaf on the memorial tree unfurled in the breeze. That evening, John reread the covenant by lamplight. The fine print confirmed the trust was perpetual, not temporary.
The money can only be used for the orchard, for bees and trees forever. Grandpa thought of everything.
He called Agent Collins to finalize the William Reeves Pollinator Fund. The paperwork was signed by morning. John's pen scratched the trust deed. His grandfather's name became a legal shield for 200 acres.
Now this land answers to no HOA, no county, no developer. It answers to the bees.
The new beehives arrived, each box stenciled with the fund's name and a single apple blossom.
43 hives destroyed, 43 rebuilt. The symmetry felt like justice.
A monarch butterfly danced through the saplings, the first of thousands that would call this place home. John knelt by the memorial tree, now a foot taller. A bee clung to its single pink blossom. He stood, dusted his jeans, and let the hum of wings fill the silence where chainsaws once screamed. One spring later, the orchard bloomed white again. Petals drifted like snow across the new rows. John carried a bronze plaque to the entrance and knelt in the damp grass. The engraving read, "For William Reeves, who taught us that the bees need us. 1998 forever."
He touched the name. Forever felt exactly right.
At dusk, deer wandered between the blossoming rows, unafraid of the man who stood watching. 60 miles away, Linda stared through a small apartment window. The view was a brick wall and a dumpster.
She had once owned a view of that orchard. Now she couldn't afford a window box of geraniums.
She turned away and sat on a folding chair, the silence of a life without meetings filling the room. Back at the orchard, John poured a tin cup of coffee and raised it toward the memorial tree.
To William Reeves. The bees are back. So am I.
That evening, John sat on his front porch, a tin cup of coffee cooling in his hands. The restored orchard hummed in the golden light. He didn't need to check the trust documents anymore. The bees were the audit, and they were busy.
Sometimes the law isn't a cage. It's a hive.
The federal sign stood polished at the entrance, no longer half buried. It wasn't just a warning. It was a welcome. John Reeves never raised his voice. He never had to. The covenant spoke louder than any HOA threat. If you've ever had to defend your land, your family, or your legacy, drop your story below. Let's build something that lasts. Because sometimes, just trees turn out to be the mightiest thing you'll ever own. Hit subscribe if you want to see more stories where the good guys use the fine print as a weapon. See you in the next one. And remember, keep your receipts. All of them.